Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have a Kaitlyn Bristowe video responding in very short terms to Jason Tartick's recent podcasts. And we're going to share that for you guys and kind of tie it all together. Follow me on Instagram at DNeals. I'm also going to be live on Patreon at noon today. Patreon, that's Central Time, patreon.com/Dave Neal, and morning and afternoons, Bachelor Rush Hour, the podcast. Tomorrow on Driving with Dave, we have Mercedes Northup. So if you want some info from this past season of Bachelor in Paradise, along with a really heartwarming conversation, you're going to love my chat with Mercedes. So let's jump into it. Kaitlyn responds to Jason. Now, hold on a second. I know. It's clickbait Dave. I'm going to get you in here and then suck you in with some dog content. No, she responds briefly, and then we're going to share a few other thoughts and see how they have aged. So Jason's been on a few different podcasts to share his truth. Nothing that he said would be slamming her, but, there is his side of how the relationship ended. There's her side. Of course, she was the one who officially ended it with him, but there's a lot that goes into a breakup, right? So when it comes to Rachel Lindsay and Brian Abasolo, and when it comes to Jason Tartick and Kaitlyn Bristowe or any of these breakups, we kind of try to say, okay, well, let's just know it didn't work out. Someone was the one in the catalyst to end it, but it didn't work out for various reasons, of which both parties bring that to the table. Well, Kaitlyn responds to Jason's podcast saying, letting things slide to keep the peace only starts a war inside of you. All right. Well, are we going to get a podcast tell-all from Kaitlyn? I mean, look, I hate to be the middle child here, but often I do find myself to be the middle child where I'm like, oh boy, mom's about to snitch on dad. No, we're going to have to see how this all plays out. Kaitlyn also released this very funny reel. I'm going to play for you right now. We're going to share a few more things of what she said to me, when we podcasted, plus what she said recently and what Jason said that could have led to this sort of very cold war that's going on. It's not a hot war. There's no missiles being fired, but a very cold war. First, let's do a palate cleanser with Kaitlyn Bristowe talking about Joe Dirt. It's not Joe Dirt. What's the guy? Tiger King. Joe Dirt. Hold on here. Joe Exotic. That's it. I called him Joe Dirt.
Exotic. I still, to this day, if I'm hanging on by a thread, I always say I'm Joe Exotic's eyebrow ring. I was just like hanging off. It's like barely there. That's like me sometimes on bad days. I'm barely hanging on. I'm like Joe Exotic's eyebrow ring. But he comments and he says, "Oh, cute. Also, please have your sister get me out of this hellhole." Like, how Kim helps get people out of jail? How the hell does Joe Exotic have access to Instagram in the slammer? Who's dick he sucking? Actually, I'd probably suck a few dicks to get Instagram in jail.
All right, so there. Oh, I should have had my music with it. This was clearly requiring some Curb Your Enthusiasm music. All right, anyway, here's what I love the most about Kaitlyn. Of everything we could love about Kaitlyn, here's what and I think the thing that some people don't like about Kaitlyn is probably the thing that I love about her, which is that she's just going to tell you how she feels, and it might get her in trouble, but it's also the thing that got her to be the Bachelorette in the first place, that unfiltered sort of off-the-cuff feeling. Well, when I was interviewed by her back in May, I had to let her know this. I told her early on in the interview, I had to let her know how much I loved her laugh. Have a listen. This way of laughing, and I said, if she can laugh once this way, then I'll feel okay. Oh. It's that you do this like, oh. No, you just gave it to me though.
I swear to you on everything that was genuine, because I didn't know what laugh you were talking about till it came out, and I went, oh, that one.
It's like this, like, ha. Yeah, Kaitlyn has this staccato, so she'll like joke around and and she ends it on this note. I just love it. I absolutely love it. She did it there in the video, and I'll share a few more clips of my interview with Kaitlyn. I had this moment. I just rewatched a piece of this where I did her interview in May in Nashville. It was because of that trip that I did there. Because I did her podcast, I did a stand-up show, which introduced me to a very nice and warm scene. Shout out to everyone I met last night at the comedy show. And shout out to Jenna, one of our audience members, for coming. Appreciate front row support. So because of that, I now live in Nashville. I mean, that was like kind of like my gateway into Nashville. Not to follow Kaitlyn, but I was like, oh, it's a pretty cool town. I like it here. It's actually not too bad. Either way, hold on to that. We'll come back to it. But this is sort of the, I don't know, the evolution of where things started to go, where Kaitlyn starts to share her side, Jason starts to share his side. They're both on podcasts. They're both being asked these questions. 4 months later, she unfollows him. He unfollows her. I mean, no surprises here. This is just how it goes. Evolution of a breakup.
Guys, on love. I just want a partnership. I want a partnership that has like the right amount of love to choose each other, and I
want you to want me.
Wow.
And she tells me, you have really good luck in career, in finances, in friends, in life. And she goes, but you are not so lucky in love. I said, yeah, no shit.
Are you sure she doesn't just watch
No, she
or
was
read
like,
the tabloids?
she is literally a witchy vibe on the side of the street in LA who is
So this is the problem, right? And by the way, shout out to Sean Johnson. I would love to have her on Driving with Dave. They're a Nashville couple. They're obviously, she's an Olympian, but she's also on YouTube and podcasting. So if anyone wants to hit her up on Instagram, I know they're busy with new kids and things, but I would love to interview her or be on hers, whatever. Collaborate. I'd love to collaborate with an Olympian. Either way, so Kaitlyn describes what it's like, with being unlucky in love, and Sean says, are they just reading the tabloids? Which brings a tough, a good point, which is it's got to be tough because Kaitlyn will hear from tabloids what Jason said, and then Jason might hear what she said, and are they even listening to what each other are saying? Because they're not far off, and this is why I said before, Clayton Echard and Susie Evans, they did a joint podcast, and it ended really amicably. And again, they didn't have as much time in the game. The more time in the game you have, the more resentment and bitterness and this and that. But I think Kaitlyn and Jason probably would have been served okay if they did a joint episode. I don't know. I mean, I don't see her going on his podcast. Like, his podcast doesn't really dive too deep into relationships. Hers does. But go on a third party podcast and just like talk it out about why it's not going to work, what you didn't give each other. Because Kaitlyn talks here about what she feels like she wasn't getting from Jason. He's also talking about, he's kind of doing it, I don't want to say passive aggressively, but Jason was asked, what do you want in a partner going forward? And then he lists a bunch of things. Well, essentially what you're listing is things your last partner wasn't. I mean, that's what you're doing. Here's a quick clip from Kaitlyn, not appreciating the way Jason was handling the post-breakup conversations.
a little bit disappointed. I'm going to try and not get emotional because I cried all day yesterday. But it's really disappointing to me the way that Jason's kind of leaning into the victim mentality, because I don't want to dismiss that he's hurting.
Yeah.
I don't want to dismiss that his feelings are valid and his feelings are hurting, but like, I have talked to him so openly and honestly.
But also, it doesn't mean you're not hurting too.
Don't interrupt her.
I am.
Like, aside from all the shit going on social media.
But
the guest just interrupted what was going to be some amazing. Me, also got annoyed. Content from Kaitlyn. Let her speak.
we have been like so transparent with each other to like have respect for one another.
I've known you for 8 years, and I've known you all the years you were with Jason. And so he's seen the same things I've seen. And you've gone through stuff and you've had the internet bully you before, and he sees how that affects you. I've seen how that affects you. So why would you ever want someone to feel that way again?
The word disappointment keeps coming up. Like, I feel so disappointed that someone could use a false narrative, like a false narrative accusation, to garner sympathy for themselves.
But you also have to protect your own sanity and your mental
All
health.
right, so what we see here is that Kaitlyn has probably seen some of what Jason has said and thought, well, don't play the victim. And that's what's kind of difficult, is how do you share your story without the audience wanting to pick sides? I don't pick sides. I mean, look, they weren't meant to work out. Maybe she was the one who twisted the knife to end things, but I'm sure there was plenty of puncture wounds in the relationship. Maybe he's able to compartmentalize. All right, I'm just going to go work and ignore what's not going well. And maybe she was also, and then eventually go, what are we doing here? What are we doing? And that's okay. That's absolutely okay. The moment that was I just can't believe Savannah Chrisley, which by the way, I would love to have her on Driving with Dave, but I don't think she was supposed to tell Jason what she just said. It feels to me, and it feels like the producer knew she shouldn't have said this, but what you're about to watch, we already shared, but it kind of feels like she crossed some boundaries with maybe girl code. Have a listen.
That you're like struggling to swim back to like
Correct.
fix it. And it's like you both just can't get there.
Can't swim together.
Yeah.
I get it.
It wasn't anything bad. It was just you could just tell when someone's ready to move forward and someone's not.
Yeah, it was gradually growing apart. I was a bit in denial. And
Good video.
And when the breakup happened, I really wanted to. I'm like, all right, let's work. Let's do anything. Let's try and salvage it. But at that point, it was too late.
Try
and I
and
think even if
salvage.
like you felt that tone in March, right? Obviously, it was a long time before that. And in my head, there were things like I think I lived a little bit in a cloud. But
because now when you look back, you're I should have seen this. I should Yeah.
And so
what would you say was your big...
what I didn't share here is what we shared yesterday, which was she seems to have known something and spilled to Jason, oh, Kaitlyn told me she was going to dump you. Now, she doesn't say this. She doesn't say Kaitlyn told me she was going to dump you, but she kind of bites her tongue here.
as well, we're here.
She came on my podcast in March, and I just knew by how she was talking about your relationship. I was like, this is not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to end.
Yeah. I've heard there were a lot of conversations I wasn't aware of before the breakup that were similar to that.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that was because it was just like there was never a step to move forward. There was never like, let's plan a wedding. Let's do these things.
Which, by the way, he could have equal part in. I mean, planning a wedding should be a joint, thing there. I mean, they have all of the bandwidth and equity and resources in cash to have made that happen. So why it didn't happen, I don't blame anybody. Resistance could have gotten the best of them. Wanted to go back here real quick if you're still checking us out and go to the moment. This is the moment that I wanted to share with you guys just for my loyal audience here. This was back in May. My wife and I were not pregnant yet. We actually were not considering moving to Nashville. But how about this? Now that we live in Nashville and are having a baby in less than 3 months. Things where people get very weird. My channel's been very lucrative in the last couple of years. It's changed my life.
Yeah.
We're going to buy a house. We're going to get a kid now.
love that.
Things we didn't even think of because buy a house and get a kid now. And I was just saying that that's in the plans, and it's thanks to you guys. It truly is. I have 2 clips I wanted to share from this same interview that I just found interesting here. Let's play them right here.
Every day you do a pop. What is it? Pop culture? Is that what they call
I
it?
did 3 videos today and a podcast from my hotel room. Yeah.
You did 3 videos today and a podcast from your hotel
I
room.
did a video on you.
You did?
Yeah.
I can't wait to
You
see
had
it.
grocery store Joe, and you were talking about Bali and the Maldives, and I was like, I've gone to Bali and I'm going to the Maldives. I'll talk about this.
Oh my God,
so I
I
just
love it.
pull from the content, I aggregate what's interesting to me, I promote it, and then I just run.
How many hours a day do you think you spend on research for?
Okay, so anyway, you can go watch that full episode. I mean, I don't spend too much time researching. It's just general through lines. I find Kaitlyn Bristowe interesting. I find Jason Tartick interesting. I mean, they're interesting for different reasons, but anyone from the Bachelor world that's willing to wear their heart on their sleeve, whenever there's comments, I'm not going to read them here, you know what I mean? I'm too busy, but whenever there's comments that bash her, it's like, what do you want? She's like a social experiment, right? She's on the show. She's talking about her love life. You get to watch it. You get to analyze it. What is there to hate about that? You want the perfect person, and Kaitlyn shows you that you're not going to get that.
After Bachelorette, where I was like, holy shit, I can't believe I did it. I'm the Bachelorette. I'm going to do this. I have this name for myself now. And then after everything, I remember in another just complete downward spiral being like, you don't like this feeling, Kaitlyn. You piece of shit. Everybody on the internet hates you. And I was just like, and then I flipped it where I went, okay, everyone hates you. People are slut shaming you. You like to empower women. Let's turn this negative into a positive and use your voice for something. And then as soon as I did that, it wasn't like the rain clouds and everything's, a storm. It was like everything was like this light coming in, and I started getting the right jobs and the right brand deals, and certain things started happening for me. And that's happened a few times. Like, not to dog on my ex, I'm not saying that, but when that breakup happened,
she's talking about, just remember this from May, so she's talking about Sean Booth.
I was in a very toxic place, and as soon as I got rid of that energy, everything started. I'll never forget. He like moved out, and then the next day, the CEO of my podcast company, thank you. Oh, R.I.P. Norm, he passed. But he was like, I'm gonna get you my private jet, and I'm gonna fly you out to this place to speak on a panel with me and Jewel and Mario Lopez. And I was like, whoa, okay. And I'm just sitting on a private jet reading a book and like doing emails about my own wine label. And I'm like, what's just happening? And then everything just started flowing in the right way because I just got rid of a certain energy.
Now, this, of course, was years ago talking about Sean Booth, but now getting rid of a certain energy being that commitment to a relationship. You're going to see Jason's career and you're going to see Kaitlyn's career enter a new level, a new strategy, not because they're single, but because they were able to ditch the thing that wasn't working. When they go to that new energy, hopefully she can meet a guy or a girl and he can meet a guy or a girl, whatever their preference is, at that energy level and find the right person. But Jason, when they started dating, Jason was just getting his footing and she was up here, and it wasn't an equal playing field. So when Jason's resentful that she's not, taking care of him, whatever their bitterness is, it's because they weren't on an equal playing field. They weren't of equal energy, and it wasn't matching. That's my thought. I'd love to know what you guys think. I'll be back with more content. Hey, don't forget, I'm going to be live on the Patreon at noon today. We're going to be discussing the document we're putting together for the docuseries. We're putting together episodes for what we think as fan fiction would be. This isn't an actual, this isn't actually what's going on. I mean, maybe, but a fan fiction of what we think the Clayton Echard paternity documentary would look like. So if you want to be a part of that, patreon.com/Dave Neal at noon Central Time. We'll see you then.